If you live with a Shih Tzu long enough, there will be at least one moment when you freeze in place after hearing a strange sound coming from your dog. It's not a cough. It's not exactly a sneeze. It's a sharp, repetitive snorting sound that makes it seem like your Shih Tzu is struggling to breathe. The first time it happened to me, my heart nearly dropped. I called her name, picked her up, and stood there not knowing what to do except hope it would stop. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. She went back to normal, trotted off to drink some water, and looked at me as if nothing unusual had happened. It wasn't until years of living with Shih Tzus, talking to veterinarians, and watching the same thing happen again and again that I finally understood that frightening moment has a name. And more importantly, it is usually not dangerous. Reverse sneezing is something almost every Shih Tzu owner will encounter sooner or later. It happens when the soft tissue at the back of your dog's throat becomes irritated, triggering a reflex where they pull air sharply through the nose. That's why the sound is so alarming, it's unfamiliar and intense. What makes owners panic is how it looks from the outside. During an episode, a Shih Tzu may stretch their neck forward, keep their mouth closed, and stiffen their body slightly. It looks serious. But in most cases, the dog is still breathing, just in a way that sounds frightening to human ears. Over the years, I began to notice patterns. Reverse sneezing often happened when my Shih Tzu was overly excited after play, when she drank water too quickly after running, or when there were strong smells in the house like floor cleaner or perfume. Sometimes it happened simply because she pulled too hard on the leash during a walk. The most important thing I learned is this: your calmness directly affects your dog. When I panicked, she became more tense. When I stayed calm, spoke softly, and gently rubbed her throat, the episode often passed much faster. There was no need to shout, shake her, or overreact. Reverse sneezing doesn't usually require medical treatment, but it does require understanding. And once you understand it, you stop turning a scary sound into a frightening experience for both you and your Shih Tzu. Part 2. What I actually do when a reverse sneezing episode happens after the first few times. I learned that the most important thing to do during a reverse sneezing episode is surprisingly simple: stay still and stay calm. Not because doing nothing magically fixes it, but because your reaction sets the tone for how your Shih Tzu experiences the moment. When my Shih Tzu starts reverse sneezing now, I don't rush toward her or grab her suddenly. I kneel down slowly, speak in a low, steady voice, and let her know I'm there. Dogs are extremely sensitive to our energy, and panic travels fast. The calmer I am, the faster her body seems to relax. I usually place my hand gently on her throat or chest and rub softly. Not pressing, not forcing anything, just enough contact to help her focus and swallow. Sometimes that alone shortens the episode. Other times, I briefly cover her nose for a second or two, which encourages her to swallow and reset her breathing. I never hold it longer than that, and I stop immediately once she swallows. What I don't do is just as important. I don't shake her. I don't lift her head aggressively. I don't yell her name or restrain her tightly. Those reactions only add tension to an already uncomfortable reflex. Reverse sneezing looks dramatic, but fighting it usually makes it last longer, over time. I also learned to pay attention to patterns. If an episode happens after heavy play, I slow things down. If it happens during walks, I loosen the leash or switch to a harness instead of a collar. If strong smells trigger it, I ventilate the room or remove the source. These small adjustments reduced how often it happened far more than any single trick. What surprised me most was how quickly my Shih Tzu learned from my behavior. When I stayed calm, she stopped panicking too. The episodes became shorter, less intense, and eventually just another small moment we moved through together. Reverse sneezing doesn't require heroics. It requires understanding, patience, and the confidence to know that not every scary sound means something is wrong. And once you learn that, both you and your Shih Tzu breathe easier literally and figuratively. After living with reverse sneezing for years, I learned that most episodes don't require panic, but a few signs should never be ignored. Knowing the difference between a harmless episode and a reason to visit the vet brought me real peace of mind as an owner. Most of the time, reverse sneezing is brief. It sounds scary, and then it fades. My Shih Tzu goes back to normal within minutes, sometimes seconds. But if an episode starts happening more frequently, lasts longer than usual, or seems more intense each time, that's when I start paying closer attention. I also watch for what comes with the reverse sneezing. If my Shih Tzu shows nasal discharge, lethargy, coughing, loss of appetite, or difficulty breathing between episodes, I don't wait it out. Those signs tell me something more than simple irritation might be involved: allergies, an infection, or another issue that needs professional care. Another thing I learned is that reverse sneezing should not leave your dog exhausted or distressed afterward. If my Shih Tzu looks shaken long after the episode ends, or avoids activity she normally enjoys, I take that seriously. Reverse sneezing itself is usually harmless, but it shouldn't change how your dog behaves overall. When I do take her to the vet, I don't walk in panicked. I explain patterns when it started, how often it happens, what seems to trigger it, and how she behaves afterward. That information is far more helpful than describing how frightening the sound was. The biggest lesson Part 3 taught me is balance. Not every episode needs a vet visit, but every episode deserves attention. Being a responsible Shih Tzu owner doesn't mean rushing to the clinic every time. It means knowing your dog well enough to recognize when something is truly different. And once you have that confidence, reverse sneezing stops being a source of fear and becomes just another small part of understanding the dog you love. One thing I learned after years of living with a Shih Tzu is that reverse sneezing may not always be preventable, but it can often be reduced. Not by medication, not by panic, but by small changes in how we live together every day. The first adjustment I made was switching from a collar to a harness during walks. It seemed like a minor change, but it made a noticeable difference. My Shih Tzu stopped pulling against pressure on her throat, and the episodes that used to happen after walks became far less frequent. For a breed with sensitive airways, that single change mattered more than I expected. Inside the house, I became more aware of the air itself. Strong smells were a common trigger: cleaning products, air fresheners, even certain perfumes. I didn't eliminate them entirely, but I used them more carefully and made sure the space was well ventilated. Over time, I noticed that reverse sneezing happened less often in a calmer, cleaner-smelling environment. I also paid attention to how fast she ate and drank. Excitement after play, followed by gulping water too quickly, often led to an episode. Slowing things down helped. Short breaks, calmer transitions, and a few quiet moments before meals made a difference. These weren't rules, just habits that formed naturally once I saw the pattern. What surprised me most was how much my own behavior influenced hers. When our daily routine became more predictable, regular walk times, familiar play, consistent rest, her body seemed to relax. And a relaxed Shih Tzu simply had fewer episodes. Stress didn't cause reverse sneezing directly, but it made her more sensitive to every trigger. And once you stop fighting the condition and start working with your dog's needs, reverse sneezing becomes less frightening, less frequent, and far easier to live with for both of you. Over time, reverse sneezing stopped being something I feared and became something I understood, not because it disappeared completely, but because I learned to read my Shih Tzu more clearly: her body, her timing, her small signals that told me when she was uncomfortable and when she was simply reacting to a temporary irritation. Experience didn't make the sound any prettier, but it made it less powerful. It no longer controlled my emotions, and that alone changed everything. I noticed that as I grew more confident, my Shih Tzu did too. When an episode began, she no longer looked startled or confused. She stayed where she was, trusting that it would pass. There was no frantic pacing, no wide-eyed panic. Just a brief moment of discomfort followed by calm. That shift didn't come from training, It came from familiarity, from repetition, from the quiet understanding that nothing terrible was happening. Living with a Shih Tzu teaches you that not every issue needs to be fixed. Some things simply need to be lived with wisely. Reverse sneezing is one of those things. You can reduce it, manage it, and understand it, but you can't always erase it. And that's okay. A dog's life, like ours, isn't meant to be perfectly smooth. It's meant to be supported. What mattered most to me was learning the difference between discomfort and danger. Reverse sneezing lives firmly in the space of discomfort, startling, noisy, unpleasant, but usually harmless. Once I accepted that, I stopped reacting emotionally and started responding practically. I focused less on the sound and more on the pattern, less on fear and more on presence. And in doing so, I realized something larger about living with Shih Tzus. They are sensitive dogs. Their bodies react quickly to stimulation smells, excitement, stress, changes in routine. But they are also remarkably adaptable when they feel safe, when they trust the person beside them. Their nervous systems soften. Their reactions shorten. Their world steadies. Reverse sneezing became, in an unexpected way, a reminder of my role as her caregiver. Not to panic, not to dramatize, but to be calm when things sound worse than they are. To be steady when she needs reassurance. To stay grounded so she can, too. If you're a Shih Tzu owner and you've heard that sudden, alarming sound for the first time, know this: you're not alone, and you're not failing. Almost every longtime Shih Tzu owner has stood exactly where you are, heart racing, unsure what to do, afraid of what might happen next. With time, knowledge, and observation, that fear fades. What replaces it is confidence. And confidence is one of the greatest gifts you can give your dog. Reverse sneezing doesn't define your Shih Tzu's health, and it doesn't define your ability as an owner. It's simply one small part of living with a breed that feels deeply and reacts quickly. When you learn to meet that moment with calm instead of panic, you and your Shih Tzu grow together. In the end, caring for a Shih Tzu isn't about eliminating every strange sound or unexpected behavior. It's about understanding which ones matter and which ones simply need patience, presence, and a steady hand. And once you reach that point, even the scariest moments lose their power, leaving behind something quieter and stronger: trust.